Hi, thanks for joining us today on our journey of discovering the heart of the Father and just leaning into our relationship with Him and our identity in Him, and out of that producing some lasting fruit. God's so good, and it's so good to be with my friend Steve. Steve, thanks for joining us again today.
Thank you for the privilege. Thank you.
We're in a conversation about humility, and today we're going to lean into that and specifically gratefulness and how those two are tied together.
Yeah, one of the, as far as automotive, the whole automotive industry and cars, etc. From my limited perspective, one of the greatest inventions on the automobile is the oil dipstick. I know these days, I don't even know if they still have them or not. There's some high tech. But back in the old days,
my car still has it.
I'm sure there's a lot of dipsticks around in cars. Not your neighbor. Don't call your neighbor a dipstick. Don't do that. But you think about that, you think, that's really a cool invention. Because the alternative would have been to crawl under your car, drain all the oil out, measure it, think, well, got enough. Put the stopper back on, then pour all the oil back in. But with a dipstick, you just pull that thing out and go, okay, we're good. Or I know I need to add some oil, and oil is, of course, critical to the life of the engine. And so so you think, okay, now again, we're really pushing on the practical expression of humility. So in some respects, just for the fun of it here, I'm going to suggest possibly what we might call a humility dipstick. Okay? Because you wake up in the morning, you look at yourself in the mirror and go, am I looking humble? Am I looking proud? How am I doing? You know, not that we need to measure all the time, not saying that, but the way that works is there's something. I heard one time someone said this, that, you know, humble people are grateful. And grateful people are humble. So it's hard they go together.
Yes.
So when you think about humility, you think, you know, what kind of spirit am I walking in? Well, another question you could ask is, what's coming out of my mouth? What attitude do I have toward God, toward others, etc.? Is it gratefulness? Or is it, I deserve better? Is it complaining? Is it grumbling? And it's like, if it's not gratefulness, then it can serve as an early indicator of maybe the oil level or the humility level on your car or your engine getting a little low.
Yeah.
Pause for a second and say, what's going on? But at the same time, when you think about gratefulness, again, just keeping this in the vein of the practicality of humility, you think about gratefulness, you think, well, when we think gratefulness and humility, you think, well, how do you grow in humility? What do I do? I just go wake my neighbor up tomorrow morning and say, I'd just like to confess all my sins to somebody. You're the closest one to me. Or I wrote a list of my strengths and weaknesses last night. You want to read it? How do I grow in humility? How do I do that? Maybe one of the things that possibly creates an environment for humility to prosper is gratefulness. And
Yes.
here's how it fits together, is that when we begin to give thanks, it aligns us to reality. So there's an exercise that maybe we'll suggest at the end of this time to actually do. But it's like, take 60 seconds, just set a timer, push the button, and for 60 seconds, don't think of anything else. Just try to think only about any practical expressions of God's loving kindness in your life. Maybe some of the biggest ones, or maybe it's a small one. Maybe He healed you of a disease, or maybe He provided laundry money for you when you were in college. Whatever it is, just some way which you think that was a practical expression of God's loving kindness in my life. And once you identify something, just one of those things, you don't have to try to list them all, but just find one and then camp on that one for 60 seconds. And when people do that, they discover something. So I'm ruining the exercise by telling you what they discovered. But what people discover is that there's suddenly, most people, there comes this urge to give thanks.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to say thank you to God or maybe to someone else when they think about that expression of loving kindness.
It shows the power of what we need to, a perspective, and what we need to think on, what we need to set our thoughts on, what we need to set our hearts on. And as we do that, then those things grow. And out of that, the abundance of the things that are in our heart, that have grown in our heart, we speak. And so it's a powerful process.
Yeah. So it's like a recalibration or a tuning. I think what sometimes people discover when I unpack this exercise with people, it's a very simple exercise. I'd say, actually, did you almost feel like you're going through a process of humbling yourself? And another way of breaking that down is, were you reminded of who God actually is as you meditated on this expression of loving kindness? Were you reminded of who you actually are? Were you possibly reminded of who other people are? See, so what you're doing just in that meditation exercise is you're rehearsing what's true about God, what's true about me, what's true about others. Now, there are many things that we would classify as good in our lives. Take reading, for example. It's a good thing if you can read.
Yes.
And I assume most people who are watching can read. And it's a good thing. But who among us taught ourselves to read without the aid of any other human being or any written materials?
Yeah, didn't happen.
Now, so humility recognizes that and goes, you know what, if I ever see my first grade, second grade teacher, I'm going to give them a big hug. Say, thanks for getting me started with reading. Or maybe your mom taught you to read, whoever it was. So you think, wow, that good thing in my life came from God, from other people, whatever. And the recognition of that, the celebration of that, is the giving of thanks. So that's where you see this relationship between humility and the giving of thanks. So what I encourage people to do is to exercise your gratefulness muscle. I'm not sure exactly where it's located, but we've all got a gratefulness muscle somewhere. And sometimes a simple way to do that is, hey, take a walk and begin to thank God for everything you can see or everything you're experiencing. Thank you, God, that I can actually see, that I can hear the sounds, birds, whatever, that I'm mobile, I can walk. I can sing as I can speak, I can think, whatever it may be. Thank you for grass. Grass is really cool. How could I carpet the earth? You do it easily. You carpet the earth with grass. You cover the trees with leaves. The earth is the perfect distance from the sun. Thank you, God. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. A rehearsal. Next time you're at the faucet, push that lever, turn it back off. And then pause and think, what have I done to deserve access to clean water at any temperature I prefer? What have I done to deserve that? How did I earn this?
It's a gift.
Now you think, your rest of your family comes you on your knees at the kitchen sink crying or something. That may be that's dramatic, but it's the recognition. It's like, man, I'm surrounded by blessing and privilege.
Yes. Yeah, we're so blessed.
So, but we're in such a hurry to wherever it is we're going, all of us, me included, that we rarely pause at the faucet or in the shower, wherever these things, these wonderful blessings that surround us. We rarely pause long enough to think, thank you, God. Thank you for this privilege. So gratefulness it just has this thing of like, it's like the piano tuner coming to a piano and saying, it's gonna make some nice music once we get it tuned up. And gratefulness has that capacity to tune me up to reality. What's true about God, what's true about others, what's true about me. Man, I'm surrounded by privilege. Privilege all around me. So it's powerful, powerful Powerful connection. So you could look at it possibly as like a humility dipstick.
Mm-hmm.
And so connected to humility, it's like, man, if there's not gratefulness rolling out of me, I need to take a break here.
Yeah.
And meditate.
And the beauty of that with humility is that it's not like oil in a car that here's the maximum level.
Oh yeah.
It's an open container where that dipstick can it can just increase and increase as we express our gratefulness to God, that we can grow in humility, and that in the sense that we have a much clearer perspective on who God is, who we are, and others, and just walking in the truth of that reality. So if you don't mind, Steve, I know you already walked us through that exercise, but just briefly give us those steps again now that people can, as we wrap up the video, just walk through that themselves.
Yeah, the real simple thing is, first of all, identify with some practical expression of God's loving kindness in your life. But it could be very dramatic. It could be huge, or it could be something small, something recent, it could be years ago. Identify that, just one thing, one practical expression of God's loving kindness. Set a timer for 60 seconds, and then meditate on that expression of God's loving kindness. The timer goes off. Think through, what did that do in me? How did I want to respond? Just think through how it worked in you. And I think the goal here with this exercise is to convince us that humbling ourselves is practical. And it's not rocket science. There are simple ways to move toward humility, which is embracing the truth, embracing reality. And as we embrace reality, we'll give thanks. That's how the two go together.
Thanks, Steve. Just encourage you to follow through on that. You've already invested at least 10 minutes of your day with us already, and so take 2 more, because those might be the 2 best minutes of your day, just to follow through on what Steve said. God bless you. Thanks for joining us today.